I want to thank you for the your YouTube videos. They're so informative. I went from zero knowledge to, I think some knowledge. We'll leave it at that. But it really empowers me as a consumer, which I was not empowered before.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I mean, that's why I'm here. So, well, I've seen your MRI and I want to go over the implications with you in your case. But if it's okay with you, I would like to start with just sort of who you are so I can get a sense of how this spinal stenosis is affecting you.
Yeah, well, 70 years old, never had back surgery, had back trouble all my adult life in terms of just pain, and I just worked through it and thought, I really, until it affects the quality of my life, I'm just not going to address it. Now, over the years, I've had chiropractic, and lately I've had chiropractic, PT, massage, which I continue to get. Of course, massage is temporary, and PT really didn't help. So now I'm at, okay, I have apparently stenosis. We got to fix this. Um, it's limiting my ability to move or to walk. I can't stand long. I can't walk very long. I'm starting to feel some urinary type issues where I think you
Mm,
mentioned about the bladder. I don't think I'm
yeah.
fully emptying the bladder, so I'm going to the bathroom a lot more.
Mm.
So it's time to take a look at this and hopefully fix it from my perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Are you retired or are you still working?
I still work. I work at home, basically online all day. Looking at, I'm an electrical engineer. I look at drawings and put together quotations for contractors east of the Mississippi. I work for, it used to be called General Electric. Now it's BB out of Sweden.
That's a big change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And who do you live with? Are you on your own or are you
I'm
married or?
divorced on my own, live by myself, don't really have any family nearby. So, and with that in mind, I'd actually had looked at doctors in Houston. I lived in
Hmm.
Houston for a while. And so I'm open to going where the best doctor is. And I haven't
Okay.
settled on a doctor here.
And where is here? Where do you live?
Oh, I'm sorry, Atlanta, Georgia at the
You're in
present.
Atlanta. Okay.
Yeah.
Hot Atlanta. You've been there a long time?
Most of my life,
Are you an exerciser?
no. Although
No.
this is sort of a big motivator. And I actually, had hoped to exercise to try and help this problem, but stenosis, as I understand it, is not really going to be improved much
Mm-mm.
through exercise, or not at
Yeah.
all, really. But my body obviously would be better to be stronger and have more muscle mass.
Yeah. Yeah. Strength is always good, and especially as we get older, strength is even more important, oddly, than it was when we were young and we did so much to strengthen ourselves.
Yeah,
Well, that's terrific. Are you having more back pain or more leg pain with walking now?
the pain is in my left rear buttocks and somewhat in my left thigh, and the strength in my leg appears to be fine because I've had doctors test that.
You healthy? You look healthy. Good heart, good lungs, the rest of it working
Yeah, I
fine.
have some high blood pressure that was diagnosed around when all this started, and sometimes I wonder if the pain is initiating the higher blood pressure. But that is the only issue, and my family has both um, heart issues where clogging of the arteries. That's on my dad's side, which my brother has. My mother had more skeletal issues and arthritis. She actually had RA, rheumatoid arthritis. And so I'm thinking I've got more of my mother's, makeup as far as skeletal issues because my cardiac seems to be fine.
We always say it's always the mother's fault, and I say that because they blame themselves anyway. So might as well get it out of the way. Do you
Right.
but mom, dad, and brother, no spine surgeries, no spinal problems.
Correct.
Okay. So just you lucky guy.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it's very severe stenosis. I'd like to go over your MRI with you if that's okay.
sure.
So this is a view right down the middle of you, like from a 1980s slasher movie where they just cut you straight down the middle. This is your back going up to your head, and this is your back going down to your bum. And if we go straight in from where the hip level is, we see the bones, the square vertebrae of the spine. And between each of the square bones is a dark disc. And discs, as is natural when we're over 18, they bulge out a little bit. And the white is water, the spinal fluid. These nerves are just bathed in spinal fluid. And so what we see is your spinal canal, very good here. But as we follow it down, it kind of beads narrow there. That's between your L5, 4, 3, 2. That's between your 2, 3. And then between your 3, 4, it does the same thing, only worse. And then between your 4, 5, it does the same thing. And it looks not as bad here, but if we looked at a bunch of cuts, we would see that this is actually more severe than this. Your worst level is your 3, 4, and your second worst level is your 4, 5, and your third worst level is your 2, 3. And then bless your heart, everything else is just normal. Nice curve in the spine, a lot of muscle mass. Everything else looks perfect except for these 3 levels of beading. And you can see the narrowing is caused by several things. If you think of your spinal canal like it's a room, the floor of the room is the disc space, and your floor is rising up into the room. And the roof of the room are the ligaments, and your ligament is thickened, and that thickening is causing narrowing. And then we don't see it as much in this, but as we get out to the sides, the side of the room is the spinal joint. And your joints, just like all joints enlarge as we get older, yours are enlarging, and that enlargement is causing your floor coming up, your roof coming down, and your walls are coming in. And you don't got to be an electrical engineer to figure out the room's getting a lot smaller. Every dimension
Yeah.
is narrowing, and it's like a boa constrictor. It's just squeezing down on those nerves. Any questions about this?
No, I know they mentioned bone spurs, I guess. Do you see bone spur
You got them.
or,
You got them. It's
yeah,
this view
yeah.
is the better one to see that. But as we look on the joints of the spine, this is a joint right here. Here's bone, bone, and the joint space. This is narrowing and pinching into what they call the lateral recess. And so you've got a combination of central stenosis as well as lateral recess stenosis. Just for reference, this is a normal spinal canal here, and these dots aren't dots. They're spaghetti. They're strings. If we're seeing them cut on end, but it's kind of like spaghetti. If you held it up and you looked at the end of it, you would see it as a bunch of dots. That's what we're seeing here. And so the white is the spinal fluid. And as we go down, your spinal fluid area goes to almost zero.
Mm,
And then it opens back up again. And then this is another way to view that beading. Here it gets small, doesn't go to zero. That was 4, 5 below. This is 2, 3. And then the other way, here's the last one. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the bad one. Here's the one above. This is like that longhorn look of the spinal canal, but there's a little canal there, just not as much.
mhm.
So that's spinal stenosis all day, every day. And we generally want to kind of grade it based on the symptoms and then grade it based on your MRI. And both are severe. The
Mhm.
MRI, when
Mhm.
you get to that little tiny dot of a spinal canal, that's critical or severe spinal stenosis. And it's severe at 3, 4, it's severe at 4, 5, and it's moderate to severe at 2, 3. So more concerning than the pictures is you. And when it goes from, I'm having trouble walking, but I'm walking through it, I'm having back pain, but I'm dealing with it, to I really am starting to lose control of my bladder. That's because the signal from the bladder coming up to the brain is being interrupted, squeezed off by the boa constrictor, and that is making your brain unable to properly regulate your bladder. And so at
Mm,
that point, you're, if I had to pull a trigger for the optimal time to have surgery, it would have been the day before that bladder stuff started happening. That was the last
mhm,
day. So we are, as the kids say, we're in the bonus. We're out here now.
mhm,
We're out where it's
mhm.
it's definitely surgical. There's no question about that.
I've had one neurosurgeon, he said 3 levels of fusion. And I had,
Wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is the old school legacy approach to spine surgery that says if we have stenosis, we'll do a laminectomy and then do a fusion while we're there. I shouldn't say wrong, I should say extreme. If the least
mhm,
invasive is over here and the most invasive is over there, that guy is over here. I assume it's a guy. That guy's over there.
yeah, yeah.
So
He's
there's
older,
no
excuse me.
older's worse.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Um, it's definitely not. I think in this day and age, the mainstream approach would be to say you need a laminectomy. An extreme approach would be to say you need a 3-level laminectomy infusion. And then on the least invasive approach, a doctor would say, well, look, your L45 is about 0. Why don't we do that first, and then do that as a minimally invasive laminectomy, give you some time to recover, do the L3-4 next, give you some time to recover, and then follow along L2-3 and see if it ever needs to be done. That would be the least invasive approach. The most common, if we did a survey of spine surgeons, I predict that the most common response would be, no, let's do a laminectomy at L2, at L3, 4, and 4, 5 now. And then another slightly to the right of that would be, let's just do all 3 levels right now.
Mhm, mhm. Okay.
What approach speaks to you? Are you kind of want to do as little as possible, or you want to get it over with in one fell swoop?
I think, think, at least the impression I get from your videos, I'm a low, low activity, low, or the minimal amount of surgical, I can't say this, and a maintenance approach. Like, let's start, with the lower in, number of things and work our way, if we need to. If I have to go back twice, 3 times, so be it. I'm not
Yeah,
opposed to multiple surgeries
I like
versus a
you.
fusion done and gone, And I know there are people that believe in that. I have a friend. He's like, no, I want it one time and over with, and that's not me.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about one and done with fusion is you then have a 17% chance of needing another fusion within 5 years. So it's a little bit of a misleading proposition. Yeah, I mean, I like you because you and I are the same, which it doesn't make it right or wrong, but does make it that
Right,
my approach, my philosophy is just do as little as possible, as safely as possible, and then keep doing it.
right.
And so I would recommend that you do that. And the qualifications for a spine surgeon are board certified neurosurgeon or orthopedic surgeon. If they're an orthopedic surgeon, they needed to do a fellowship and specialize in spinal surgery because orthopedic surgery is very broad. Neurosurgery, it's the brain and the spine. They do a ton of spine training, all of them. But
Mhm,
if of between those two, I'm a neurosurgeon. I used to be a neurosurgeon. I'd rather have a good spine orthopedist than a bad neurosurgeon. Some people say a good neurosurgeon is the best you can do. So that's kind of the way to look. Given
Yeah.
your willingness to travel, I think you should look at options because there's a very large range of practice around the operation of laminectomy. There
Yeah.
are surgeons who do laminectomy using a minimally invasive approach. And today that typically means that they put in a small tube as a retractor for your muscles with you under a general anesthetic and laying on your tummy. They put a needle and then a larger tube and they dilate to get access to that lamina. And then looking through a microscope, they do a laminectomy and open up that space. The biggest risk of that operation in cases of severe spinal stenosis like yours, the biggest risk is that they will burn a hole or tear a hole in the watertight membrane that surrounds the nerves, and that's called the dura. And if they
Mhm.
do that, they got to fix it, and that's just part of the
Mhm.
deal. That's part of their training.
Mhm.
Um, in the most extreme version, that hole leaks fluid and gets a complication called meningitis, which can really make you sick, but very, very, very unlikely. On the order of the risk of being injured while traveling to the operating room. So,
Mhm.
as relative risks go, I'm not too worried about that one. Bigger risk with you is that you would do the operation successfully, but then continue to have some version of your back pain. That's the
Mhm.
downside to not having a fusion. That can
Mhm.
generally be controlled by your pain management doctor with what they call radiofrequency ablation. You ever
Mhm.
had one of those ablation burning of
I
the
have
nerve?
not. I became aware of it on your channel, but I have not had that.
And you don't need it right now. What you need is the laminectomy. But that could be if you still had back pain after successful decompression of the spinal nerves, then that would be addressed with radiofrequency ablation. That would be the next step there.
Mhm. Okay.
There's definitely good doctors in all places. So I would base it on I would look around and come up with a short list and then make a decision based on who you like best of that short list. It's great that you have the opportunity to travel. It really does open it up where you can virtually guarantee that you have access to the best approaches. After surgery, especially if you do it in a 1 or 2 level approach, you really don't need much. You need tender loving care, not nursing care. You need
Right.
someone to do whatever you normally do so that you can't be making your own meals for the first day or two. And
Right.
in these days of Uber, it's really very safe and very doable to have surgery and go through it as a single person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did that with my hip, which is, much more
Much
longer
more.
recovery time. And I got through that okay. Had some friends to help me, but so well, that would be great. Yeah, I'd like to just, if you would, meet with me again and talk about maybe Houston, Phoenix, and Atlanta, and I'll
Yeah,
do research
yeah.
in
Let's
preparation for that.
let's come up with a good list, and we're looking for those board certified surgeons who do their laminectomies with a minimally invasive approach, which means using a tubular retractor through and operating through a microscope. And we know exactly what we're looking for. It's kind of like fishing, you may want trout or muskie or bass, but you got to know where to fish. So
Yeah, yeah.
you catch what you look for. So you catch what you try to catch. So let's go find the right surgeon for you and take it from there.
Okay.